Are you overwhelmed with what it takes to get your property market ready or don't know where to start? Abby Burdick Designs can take you step by step through preparing the interior of your home for sale for maximum interest and value for potential buyers. Abby Burdick Designs offers individualized services in all forms and at all price points to align with your needs. Abby Burdick Designs welcomes home staging and interior improvement questions and conversations in all forms at all times. Call 425-890-2343 or email abby@abbyburdickdesigns.com for more information.
Get inspired every hour right here on Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Brian and Dan on 1150 AM KKNW. I'm Brian.
And I'm Dan.
Our next guest is Abby Burdick of Abby Burdick Designs, Home Staging and Interior Improvements.
Abby Burdick Designs is pleased to be able to provide intentional and individualized design and staging services to you. They're successful when they create a pleasing and beautiful environment in your home with their design and staging services. Abby's job is to bring an individualized and intentional home styling approach and furnishings to maximize interest and value from potential buyers. Today, she's here with us to discuss all the wonderful things she did for our most recent listing. Right?
Yeah.
Abby, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Abby, tell us what you like to do when you're not staging homes.
Right.
Sure. So I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, so my hobbies have changed in the last few years, keeping her happy, healthy, and thriving, of course. But on the weekends and with friends and family, my husband and I own a travel trailer, and we take it up to the mountains in the winter and the Pacific Northwest beaches in the summer.
Glamping.
And recreate, yeah.
It's not just a travel trailer. It's an Airstream.
It is.
Oh,
yes,
my.
her name is
Yeah.
Betty, and yes, she's
Betty.
a part of the family.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Betty. Why Betty?
Betty Bird. Doesn't that just have a nice ring to it?
that's
Yeah,
great.
Betty
Love it.
Bird.
So we always ask our guests to kind of go back memory lane and reflect on growing up in the house they grew up in. So tell us your story.
Yeah, actually, mine is kind of seasonally appropriate, which is nice. I grew up in a housing development, and for what our house was just positioned perfectly in this housing development. We're kind of the epicenter, right next to the park that was built in, and it was just kind of the front and center, which made it the trick or treat Halloween.
Oh.
Everybody hit our house. We're talking hundreds of doorbell rings.
You guys
and
handed out apples or pencils?
No, definitely not. Definitely not that neighborhood. And to the point where I remember my parents would have to kind of tap back into our trick or treat candy just to kind of
funny.
keep it going. So yeah, that's a great memory, and like I said, kind of seasonally appropriate there.
So, how did you get into home staging?
Sure. So a family friend is unfortunately fiercely fighting cancer at the moment. She had a successful home staging and interior design business, and it was just time for her to let go. She'd been running the business for about 20 years, and I was the phone call she made. She said, "Abby, this is your business. I want you to take it on, fill my shoes. You will love the what it brings to your schedule, your family, your work-life balance, and you're the one." I will say I was kind of hesitant at first. I worked for the city of Bellevue in the parks department, a job I never thought I'd leave, collect my pension at the end. But I tried to do both for about 3 months before I realized this really was my calling, and I went for it full time.
So, if I had a friend and they called me, I'd be like, no. So, I mean, what kind of thoughts or skills or what prepped you for that?
Gosh, close to nothing. I just went into it. It's one of those YOLO moments. There is something about it.
Surely you had to have a creative bone in your body.
Yes.
I do not. Okay?
Yes, definitely. It is a huge creative outlet. That is kind of, it's hard to identify because, home staging, you think of decorating homes, spending money. I mean, yes, as a female, I did a lot of that in my own home. And so this has just been, a nice way to kind of channel that creative energy into a business and get paid for it, which is
Just think
nice.
about when you have a home.
Yes, I know, right? Oh, boy.
They're building a home for the listeners out there. So
Yes. Proud landowners still at this moment.
Yes,
so.
proud landowner. Your own slice of Americana.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the business then.
Yeah. So, I want to keep the business as simple as possible. That's a goal of mine. It really comes down to inventory, storage, and movers. I couldn't do it without those three things. I do own all my own inventory, about 4 or 5 homes worth of furniture and accessories. Of course, I do have to store it someplace, and when I need help bringing it to a listing and bringing it back to storage, that's where the movers come in. And to just keep it that simple is how I want it to be. So then it's just a matter of networking and staying busy and building relationships and, staying in the market. So, I have work for my movers and my inventory to do.
Awesome.
So, Abby, what different types of staging services do you offer?
Yeah, I would say that there's probably 4 different kind of services that I offer. One is just a consultation that where I can just come in and, assist a homeowner with kind of a home staging report, a place, kind of a where to start. And if they're willing to roll up their sleeves and do it themselves and they follow directions very well, it can kind of end there, which is a nice affordable option. But then if I'm going to come back with a little bit of inventory and do like a partial or a soft stage, where I'm kind of aligning some of my inventory with the homeowners, that's another kind of way of doing it, just kind of taking it a step further. And then the third service is kind of an unoccupied full stage. I would say that this is the most popular and the most fun for me to do. The house is clean, ready, and vacant for me to show up with a truck full of stuff and make it look great, make it look market ready. The fourth service that I offer is everything else. I don't want to be everything to everybody, but if there's something that makes sense, it feels good, it can help the homeowner, then that everything else category is something that I'm open to.
It's kind of the above and beyond, probably.
Yeah.
If you want to have a business that stands out amongst the rest, you have to be willing to do what others won't.
Sure.
Within a scope of your expertise, right?
You got it. Mm-hmm.
So take me through the most recent listing that we have coming up in Sammamish. It's launching today. This was one of those blank slates, right?
Yes.
So describe how that went, like in a day in the life at the same time.
Sure. So you say blank slate. I mean, it is the coolest house with the coolest.
cool.
I've been calling it the man cave house, and
Man
it
cave
is
house.
just it
Oh, I
is
know
so
that
cool.
house. Yeah.
I love it. So it was a fun blank slate to at least begin with. I visit the property, take tons of pictures, and just kind of evaluate. Okay, how much inventory am I bringing in, if any at all? Just kind of evaluating what the project is. Then, of course, we coordinate the staging with staging date with the movers, the homeowner, and so forth. Then I head to my storage and just start taking blue painter's tape and start tagging what I think will work. I've got those photos that I took in front of me, and I'm just kind of doing that madhouse around my inventory, just seeing, okay, this will work, that'll work, this will work, that'll work.
So, Abby, let me take you back a little bit. How much input does the seller have as you're going through and doing this?
None.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
because he was just like, go ahead.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, great guy with a beautiful home, and so it was just empty. So, I do think that it's going to bring huge value. So then that's kind of when the fun begins, though. Staging day is when the fun begins. I kind of look at it as almost like a game show.
Like Christmas?
Yeah,
Day?
kind of like Christmas, yes. I've only been to the home for 15, 20 minutes. I've looked through the photos about 100 times, but now I just feel like I'm on a game show of some kind where you just make it work. I like to stage in a day. Or I kind of promise that I'll stage in a day. And so you just show up with the truck and kind of spread it out and make it work amongst the house. I take a lot of photos as I'm staging to see how it would look through the professional photographer's, lens.
Oh, cool.
And you just kind of play ring around the rosy with the inventory that you brought until it's complete. So, yeah, it's a good time. I really enjoy it. It's a fun challenge for sure.
So you mentioned the word value. So tell us about that. How does it bring value?
Yeah. So, there's lots of statistics out there, that a staged home spends 90% less time on the market. 77% of buyers will say it's easier to visualize a property if it's staged. So all those things are great. But another example that I have that we worked on, Dan, was that property out in Carnation. Beautiful piece of property that almost spoke for itself. Out in the valley, a great house. It was on the market and kind of sat for a while. We decided to delist, and you contacted me to bring in a soft stage, just kind of complement some of the stuff that the homeowner already had. I think we painted and relisted. Was it 1-2 weeks?
I think maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
and there was a few offers on that home, and it sold shortly after.
Yeah.
So that's
There's value.
that's that great example of some of the work that I've personally done. So
Yeah, and we always advise all of our listings to get a staging consult and then invest in it, right? And we can't always get them to buy into it. So that was a good example. They were like, "Well, the market's really good. Let's just go ahead." They
Right.
had some nice stuff in there,
Right.
but then they were just missing a few things.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were able to kind of complete that cycle, it helped, I think, really paint a better picture. Because you can look at a blank canvas and you got one thing, and then you can look at a half-done photo and have another, and then you got a completed photo, and it really tells the whole story.
Right.
So sometimes half is worse than nothing at all.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So what are the top 3 home staging tips for homeowners to do themselves?
The best thing about this question is it's actually, we already all know the answers, and the answer of all 3 tips are free. So it's not necessarily, to bring in and pay a stager. Declutter,
Yep.
depersonalize, and clean. I would think that those are the, absolutely where to start. And if there's some sort of, consultation that can happen from a staging perspective thereafter, that's a whole nother thing. But the top 3, market ready staging tips: declutter, depersonalize, and clean.
So, what are 3 buyer turnoffs to avoid inside the home?
Sure. So, I would say if for any
Be it
reason.
clutter, personalized,
Yeah,
and
and
dirty.
clean. Right. And that was kind of where I was going to go with that, too. If for any reason the buyer has an extreme feeling of like, ooh, I need to keep my shoes on, bad idea.
Bad vibes,
So
yeah.
that's kind of the clean thing. And I guess 3 things kind of with that is just, to get rid of the dirty laundry, or at least cover it up. Seeing dirty towels hung on the bars, and ditching those. Seeing stains of any kind on carpet or furniture, that might be, where a stager needs to come in and soft stage or replace some of that, or you just need to get creative in hiding it. So.
Well, that's funny. I've got a folder with several thousand bad real estate photos. Someday I'll
Ooh,
share.
fun, yes.
Most of those revolve around staging. or
Okay,
the lack
sure.
thereof.
Or the lack thereof.
Lack
Okay,
thereof.
very
You know
good.
what my pet peeve is? Smells.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, either over fresheners, right, or like sour milk or some unidentified
Right.
unidentified odor.
And the
So
house is
what
occupied. I mean, we're
smells-
living.
read this week the difference between men and women. If a woman asked you to smell something, it probably smells nice.
Here, smell this. I get it.
Yeah.
So, how about mistakes? I'm sure you're not perfect, but what are some of the big stage? What is the biggest home staging mistake that you have made?
Yeah, what I struggle with
make
the
mistakes.
most, I know. Well, one thing I struggle with the most is that fine line between bringing in enough inventory and too much inventory.
interesting.
Kind of back to I like to stage in a day, and that's kind of, for personal reasons, and I want to make that day as short as possible. So hitting the mark on inventory and just making sure that I don't have to haul things back to my my storage unit or go out and, kind of do the supermarket sweep, Target run, and, fill some gaps. So, I just, the mistake that I try to, minimize is just, hitting the nail on the head, at my storage and bringing in exactly what the client needs. So the client never sees, that I might be running around town in a 16-hour day. I'll still always finish the job in a day, but that's a mistake I try to avoid personally. So
Makes sense. So, where do you see yourself and your business in 3 to 5 years?
sure. So I do just want to keep it simple. I like home staging, and I can see that being kind of it for the long haul. I just want to, build a great book of business, build some relationships, and kind of be everything to a core set of people rather than, being everything to everybody. That being said, a lot of times home staging takes on kind of an interior design path. And for whatever reason, what excites me more than that is to do, kind of as a supplemental idea, is to be a professional organizer. So coming in and doing closets or pantries or kids' playrooms and toys, like for whatever reason. I mean, you can see the excitement in my eyes. I know that the audience can't. But for whatever reason,
We're
that
on live
just gets
video,
me
so
very
we're
excited.
seeing-
Oh, okay,
see it
yeah.
right here. Very.
And yeah, so home staging always being number one, really making that the priority and investing in the number one, which is home staging.
So, Porter, you said a huge value. I frequently have clients that have been in a home 30 years, and figuring out what to keep and what to get rid of is huge. So having someone walk through that with
All the
them.
way through to
Oh
staging.
man, that's huge.
right?
Yeah.
And having a finesse about it, it really
Yeah.
is kind of a personal thing,
Yeah.
It's not that, your knickknacks and the things you've collected over the years aren't important or have great history and value, but, it's a transaction. We're heading down the road of a very large transaction. Let's look at it from a business perspective and get your house sold for top dollar.
Well, that flew by. Thank you for coming
Yeah,
on the show
of
today,
course. Thank
Abby.
you.
We
Yeah,
thanks,
appreciate
Abby.
it. It was a lot of fun. After the break, we're going to have some final thoughts, a listing launch, and so come on back after this short commercial break.